All right, hello, welcome everybody and everyone from wherever you are tuning in to. I think this is our biggest webinar this year so far, June. We're talking about a very key and, of course, controversial subject in Puerto Rico. My name is Luis Ponce. I'm one of the co-founders of Boricuas Unidos en la Diáspora. But PR for short, we are a national advocacy organization that supports sovereignty and a free Puerto Rico. We engage congressional folks to the issues that concern most Puerto Ricans and that unfortunately the elected government in Puerto Rico usually neglects. We've been active since 2017. We have a total combined following of 30,000 plus. We are set to do an event coming up in New York on the 12th of June, a great panel about what we can do for decolonization. And for those folks in DC or that can travel to DC, we're going to do one on June 23rd with the influencer of the year that actually is going to get a homage in the Puerto Rican Day Parade. Dean Huertas, we're having a great panel also in DC on June 23rd. You can find all this information in our website, botpr.org/events. But I don't want to belay the point. I'm so excited to have these Puerto Rican activists, women activists that are doing fantastic work, along with Javier and many others. I'm going to pass it to Javier, one of our members and collaborators, that he basically put this all together. So, Javier, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. So, yeah, I'll hand it up to you. I'm going to go in the background and I'll be, if there's any question, managing the chat. So yeah, go ahead, Javier, with the intros, and thank you all for being here.
Right. Thanks, Luis. Thank you all for tuning in. I'd especially like to thank, the various organizations represented here for doing first such amazing work and second for taking time out of their extremely busy schedules to talk with us today. So I would like to introduce first Beatriz Llenín Figueroa, who is part of both Defiende a Cabo Rojo, Defend Cabo Rojo, and Editora Educación Emergente. Beatriz Llenín Figueroa lives passionately in Cabo Rojo. She's a companion and friend, writer, editor, and translator, and a journeywoman, a lover of animals and the performing arts. She is a co-founder and co-editor of the independent editorial house Editora Educación Emergente, founded in Cabo Rojo in 2009. Since 2015, she writes for Será Otra Cosa, a section of the newspaper Claridad. After completing a doctorate in Caribbean literature and philosophy, she taught for nearly a decade as an adjunct professor at the University of Puerto Rico in Rio Piedras and Mayagüez, and continues to teach everywhere she can. Her imaginative, investigative, political, and effective lives are intertwined with the Caribbean archipelagos, its seas, its coast, and fauna, independent artistic creation, and the incarnated forms of sovereignty. She has published 6 books covering theory, critique, creation, prose, poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. Currently, she is immersed in a project of chronicles preliminarily titled Puerto Rico Caminando and in the fight against the Esencia Médica project as part of the Defiende a Cabo Rojo coalition. Next, we have Braulio Quintero, has a master's degree in biology from the University of Puerto Rico Mayagüez campus with a specialization in plant biology and forest ecology. He's worked in the Western United States with the Forest Service, with various nonprofits as a lab and field technician in El Yunque National Rainforest for the Dr. Wendy Silver of the University of California. He also did a doctorate in the State University of New York in the Syracuse campus, specializing in econometrics of the energetic sector in Puerto Rico. He is a co-founder of ICER and also has worked as a agriculture and has developed multiple agroforestal projects. Finally, Damary Burgos, natural of San Germán and transplanted to Philadelphia. She leads the program of young artists in the Puerto Rican workshops until returning to her native country in 1997. She finishes her studies in a master's in fine arts in paint at the UIPR in 2004. She received scholarships from the Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueña in 2004, the National Endowment of the Arts in 2006, and the NEH in 2012. And most recently, by the Tiznado El País 2023 until this year of 2025. A national project to visualize contributions and cultural legacies of Afro-descending persons, and to create the work Afro Bori Libertaria with the artist Yasmin Hernandez in Casa 4 this year, 2025. Burgos works prolifically in ludic itinerant installations within and outside of Puerto Rico that explore the development of our sensibilities and decolonial perceptions. She is a proud mother of two and an associated professor in fine arts in the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Puerto Rico, where she works since about 20 years ago, giving courses at the undergraduate and master's levels, with specializing in painting and drawing. She has illustrated numerous books, which many of which involve Puerto Rican folklore, of Julia Cristina Ortiz Lugo, La Reina Mora in 2021, of spiders, rabbits, and turtles, the presence of Africa within the oral tradition of Puerto Rico, 2020, the Puerto Rican Cinderella, 2019, the Sweet Doll, 2023. And she is very passionate about artistic work within the community and is a co-founder of the Brigada Solidaria del Oeste, being one of the muralists signaled in the Puerto Rico Museo al Aire Libre by Marvin Fonseca Barahona in 2015, and more recently, Inconformes y Disidentes, arte puertorriqueño en el siglo XXI, by the critic Nelson Rivera last year. But yes, thank you all for doing such incredible work with your various organizations. So I'd like to, kick it off with just a brief overview of what the Esencia project is, in case folks are not familiar, and then we'll get straight to the questions. So very briefly, going off some reporting done by Sharon Meneli Perez and Efraín Montalbán Ríos in El Nuevo Día, it's a $2 billion development that's been slated to be built over 10 years on 2,000 acres of land on a 3-mile stretch of pristine beach. It's not the first development to be proposed for this area, but it is shaping up to be one that's very much more likely. Developers have purchased over $55 million in land from local landowners already, and this will consist of, among other things, 500 hotel rooms, 1,000 luxury tourist residences, golf courses, practice areas for golf courses, beach club, a commercial area, courts, a school with 500-room dorm, among others. And I should also note that the Federal Fish and Wildlife Service has expressed a series of environmental concerns over the impact on biodiversity and on many surrounding ecosystems, including wetlands, mangroves, and dry forests. So just to get us started, how has each of you, in both your role as individuals and in your wider role as groups, worked against Esencia, and how have you guys worked together? Have any particular difficulties arisen? What has worked? What hasn't?
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and start. Thank you for having us in this event. Thank you also to everyone at Boricuas Unidos en la Diáspora for all the work they do. And we look forward to continue for this to be the first of many collaborations in the future. We are certain that we need each other very much and in a reciprocal manner. Those of us living in the archipelago and those of us living in the States or anywhere else in our multiple diasporas. So thank you very much for all you do, and thanks to everyone who has joined. I think I'm just going to try to answer very quickly this first question so that Damary and Braulio can add their viewpoints. I think the main strength of our fight has been the fact that we came together very quickly, very early to oppose this disaster. This would really be a catastrophe, not only for Cabo Rojo and the entire southwestern region of our country, but also for Puerto Rico in general. And I think also it would certainly establish a precedente. This is going to start happening. I'm sorry. That would really be very catastrophic for the country. We've been facing, as I think everyone probably knows, a crisis by design of this colonial neoliberal capitalist system over several years now, in fact, decades, but especially aggravated since the imposition of the Promesa law and the Fiscal Control Board, la Junta de Control Fiscal, in 2016. And we've been experiencing this spiraling of basically the sell-off of our lands, not only of our coasts, but also Esencia really would also entail a sell-off of tierra adentro. It's a huge, basically luxury city for multimillionaires, developed by multimillionaires and designed for multimillionaires. So coming together as various organizations that do community work, that do scientific work, that do cultural and intellectual work, coming together since last year very quickly as the news started coming out that this project was in the works, I think has been our greatest strength. The coalition eventually emerged several months later, and the coalition also includes just individuals who are not necessarily part of the core organizations. And also we work with multiple other organizations that are not only based in Cabo Rojo or the Western region, but also across the archipelago and in the diaspora that have helped us in multiple ways along the way. And we're sure that trend is going to continue. So I think I just want to stress the idea of the coming together, the Frente Común. We're committed with fostering that and with nurturing that as not only as a way of fighting, but also as a political horizon for the liberation of Puerto Rico. We are in dire need of just coming together with all our diversities, but finding the common ground. And we have identified in this immense threat of Esencia a great common ground for all our diverse organizations and individuals to come together and stop the possibility of this catastrophe and the precedente that it would establish to continue just basically the sell-off of Puerto Rico, the exploitation of and devastation of our nature, of our landscapes and seascapes, and of our all our species, human and non-human, but also the archaeological devastation that this project would mean. And I'm not gonna go into that now because I imagine we can talk about it more later. But this project would really affect in all these areas. It would mean greater inflation, it would mean greater displacement, or what I like to call expulsión, the outright just forcing people just by the effects of a mega project like this to have to leave Cabo Rojo, to have to leave Puerto Rico, the greater fragmentation of our neighborhoods and our families, the greater impossibility of people just to survive in the country where they want to live, where they want to stay, or they want to return to. So I'm going to leave it there because I'm probably taking too long, but I would stress the coming together as our main strength.
So picking up on where Beatriz left off, greetings to everybody. Thank you so much for this invitation. Saludos, Javier, y las compas allá. First of all, La Brigada Solidaria del Oeste, or the Solidarity Brigade of the West, was formed 48 hours before the passing of Hurricane Maria. And as Beatriz mentions, the relationship and the support that we've had from the diaspora from day one, or even day -2, has been absolutely fundamental. So we give thanks and honor that. But it's also important to for that very same reason, to underscore the fact that projects like Esencia, which is the largest, has the largest scope of its kind, even though there are many other projects in the making or proposing around the archipelago. Esencia is completely disproportional. We're talking about a third of my hometown right now. It would encompass the area that Esencia is proposing to create this colonial, neo-colonial settlement here in Cabo Rojo. So it also negates the diaspora, the opportunity to come back, and the dream of owning land here and returning to ancestral lands. So I think that's really important to emphasize. In terms of what the brigade brings to the coalition of Defiende Cabo Rojo, first, I think it's fair to say that we came together around old relationships. We had worked together after the Hurricane Maria. We worked together after the earthquakes in the south part of the island, and also around Fiona. So there were already working relationships that our sister organizations, even though we don't work continuously together, we're continuously in communication. So it was easy, having had a structure that worked in the past, to reactivate it and sort of fine tune it in that way. And I'll pass the baton to Braulio.
Thank you, Bea, and thank you, Damary. So answering your question, Javier, we all come from different angles and different disciplines, right? I am a scientist, Bea is a writer, editor, Damary is an artist. And, I've worked in other coalitions and other groups fighting for different other causes. And I have to say that in this coalition, we've been very cohesive. Every group has growing pains. We've had them, but nothing serious that can't be dealt with a good conversation and understanding. I think everybody knows in this coalition that the threat is bigger than all of us, right? Y que la madre isla está bajo invasión. That's what's happening here, right? La madre isla is in state of emergency. And we all know that, and under that threat, we have created this very united front against these foreign invaders. We have to state that the Rubens brothers, which are the investors in these, the people with money, are a couple of brothers from the UK via India, which made their money when the Soviet Union fell in the early 90s out of mining aluminum in Russia. So that's the first actor. The second actor are a trio of Roberto Ruiz Varga, a Dominican Puerto Rican engineer, William Bennett, a real estate businessman from the US, and a Canadian investor called Haresh Venkataram. I might be saying his last name wrong, but I tried to. And these are the folks that are coming here and using their company, Cabo Rojo Land Acquisition, which the name states that their main purpose is to acquire land. It's not Esencia.co, it's not Esencia Company, it's not luxury developments of Cabo Rojo, it's Cabo Rojo Land Acquisition, and we really need to understand that. The game here is to acquire land and displace us. These people are coming to attack our island. These people are invading our island, and we need to put a front, a united front, and we need everybody in the diaspora to join us. And that's the call here mainly, right? We're fighting for La Madre Isla, and the Madre Isla is under attack.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely would like to also emphasize that these developers have also explicitly said that the point of this project is to create a luxury resort type area basically for the eastern coast of the United States. They've mentioned that they've also have, like they have developed a similar project in Mexico for what the western coast of the US, and they've explicitly said, that they're trying to get a similar equivalent to capture that market. Their words, not mine. So, Braulio, I'd like to kind of stick with you for this next question. This is a huge project, as all three of you have said. And the expanse is undoubtedly going to affect these huge swathes of coastal habitats for tons of endemic species here in Puerto Rico. So what kind of ecological consequences would we see both in the short and long term should Esencia come to pass?
The ecological, environmental consequences are very significant and grave in the short term and the long term. In the short term, I'm just gonna say that their plan is to flatten out over 500 acres of land and kill the forest in 500 acres of land. That's immediate. That's as soon as if they get the permits, because we always talk about if. That's what they're gonna do. Kill the forest that is there, that has been developing for the past 30, 40 years. There's patches of forest that are older, up to 60 years. And with it, the fauna that lives in there, right? This is one of the most ecologically diverse and ecologically sensitive areas of Puerto Rico. The type of forest and habitats that happen here, you rarely find in other areas of the island, right? The guabairo, which is one of the main species of birds that will be affected, can only be found in southwestern Puerto Rico. It's a rare species and endemic. It only happens here. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. La mariquita is also the same thing, right? So that's long-term, that's a short-term effect. Long-term effect, erosion, right? You are making a green surface into a gray surface. So you're going to increase the superficial water flows, which eventually is going to, end up in the Boquerón Bahia. That's eventually long-term going to affect the corals, the seagrass beds, the mangroves, and the fisheries. Those are long-term effects, right? And to us as Puerto Ricanos, they're gonna privatize the 3 miles of beach. That's more of a social effect, right? That's gonna be short-term and long-term. They're gonna close up 3 miles of beach that rarely is visited by people, and make it their own little luxury resort community for their enjoyment. So that's kind of like some of it. There's a lot more that we could say environmentally and ecologically, but we have limited time, so I'm gonna keep it there. But definitely the impacts are gonna be swift, fast, and very significant.
It's also, I think, important to mention that the documentation that we've been reading and studying over the last several months points out, particularly in the letter that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service created, a list of endemic plant and tree species that are only found in this area of Puerto Rico. There are over 100 of endemic species that are in that table. It's also, I think, important to mention the manatee, the Antillean manatee, the carey also. During the public hearings that were held in Cabo Rojo in March, we heard over 80 different ponencias of some of of the most brilliant scientists on this side of the island spoke in the hearings, and one of them, Professor Damary Costa, was talking about the importance of the seagrass in absorbing Dios mío, ayúdame, Braulio. Los rayos X de cambio climático, the
seagrass beds are a sink of CO2. So they're
Eso.
very important in the carbon sequestration. So are the mangroves, and so are the trees, right? All this vegetation, whether it's in the sea, on the coast, or on the mountains, they're all sequestering carbon, which is very important as a mitigation for climate change. The incredible thing about all this is that these people that want to develop this, that are proposing to develop this project, say that this is a sustainable construction, that they will not hurt any of the species that are threatened with extinction or are endangered, that the ostiones, that the fishes from Boquerón harvest from the roots on the mangroves, the erosion and the superficial water flows are not going to affect that. They're not going to affect the salinity of the water with their excess water runoff that's going into the bay. That the pesticides for the golf clubs, for the golf courses are eco-friendly, and that they're not going to kill anything, right? But they have to like spray 36 holes of golf courses, right? 36 hoyos que son bien grandes. And to do that, they're just gonna have to like impermeabilize, so to make the surface impermeable, cut the forest down, and lay grass pretty much. So this is a farce. This is an insult to our intelligence. Just proposing this project as is it sustainable, green, eco-friendly, whatever greenwashing terms they want to use. To me, this is one thing: exploitation of our natural resources, exploitation of our human capital, human resource, us, because they're exploiting us, and also exploiting our public funding, right? These people, this David and Simone Rubens, which have 15 billion pounds, right? 15 billion pounds of that British currency. They're given $500 million of tax exemptions and incentives in Puerto Rico. So it's a massive
For 10 years.
For 10 years, massive wealth transfer from people that don't have much, right? The median income in Puerto Rico is $23,000. It might be a little bit more, but it doesn't reach 30. And we're giving money from folks that really don't have much to people that have a lot, to want to come here to destroy our island, destroy our greenscapes, to urbanize and make it exclusive for millionaires.
I just want to stress, if it's needed, which probably it isn't, but the obscenity, the level of obscenity of this contemporary form of colonial capitalist exploitation, saqueo, just outright robbery and violence and aggression at all levels is just, we really are facing quite a moment of a limit, right? If this comes to pass, if we do not stop this, and I am sure we will, and we're counting on everyone to join us, but we really need a massive opposition that can match the massive character, the massive magnitude of this threat. So I think we can't stress this enough. it is really, it's sometimes, we've been speaking about this for over a year now, and I'm sure we will continue this fight for however long it takes, but it still sometimes is difficult to come up with words. And I am a writer and an editor and a translator, so all I do is deal with words, and it really is still difficult sometimes to come up with the words to describe the extent and the obscenity and the sheer impunity with which this extremely wealthy global class of multimillionaires are just acting with total impunity and entitled as though they are the lords of the world. So and Puerto Rico has for over 500 years been the laboratory where everything, basically, all forms of exploitation are tested first and then exported elsewhere. So, ojo, everyone, Puerto Rico and the Caribbean region, I should say, we share this history of enslavement, genocide, exploitation, just the taking of our lands, of our peoples, of our non-human species, of life in general, for the enrichment of the already super rich. But right now, in the 21st century, in this political moment we're in, this is really, and taking in consideration that we are in the midst of a climate crisis that is extremely serious also globally, we really are at a point, I think, of no return. So we really need everyone to come together. We really need everyone everywhere to come together, and we need to stop this, and we need to stop this together. I cannot also, that's the other thing I cannot stress enough, the necessity of the Frente Común, of the common front, no matter where you're at, no matter, there's so much to be done that everyone's destrezas, anything that you can do to support this cause and to come together with us is needed and is welcome.
So Javier, I just wanted to add one thing to what my compas are saying. And I think that to answer your previous question, one of the things that we have done that has been so successful is to socialize and maximize information, right? So we have been making a very concerted effort to share and divulge and just just the massification of information so that everybody can take on the cause on their own terms, in their own communities, and within their own circles, which has really been our intention all of this time. So we really can't stress enough that the 30 people that are here in the live stream and the hundreds of people that are going to watch the recording afterwards, don't just passively listen to what we're saying, but take it on as a mission, their own personal mission, to educate themselves and read as much information and pass it on and share the mission as well. I would like to ask a question. How many people here have been to Boquerón? Can I ask that? If you just put up like a little heart or a thumbs up. Yeah. Bello. Well, if you've been to Boquerón, when you're in the beach of Boquerón and you look to the left side, no, eso sería que sur, oeste. That whole hillside, the green hillside that borders the far side of Boquerón, when you're standing in the poblado, is what is in danger here. And from afar, it looks relatively small, but it really isn't. It's humongous, and it's part of a system that comes from the top of those hills and those hillsides or small mountains on the other side of Boquerón and filters down. It's a really special place, and even though so many of us have seen it from the beach side, very few of us have ever walked it or have ever ridden our bikes in it or have ever canoed or kayaked over there. It's a very special terrain. So if any of you are coming over the summer or in Christmas, I invite you to go explore that area because it really is special. It's similar to the dry forest in Guanica, but in a very different, really special way.
Yeah,
so
I wanted to mention. Sorry. Hello?
Yeah, no, just yeah, finish up. So yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that yesterday we were with the municipal legislature, right? The legislative body for Cabo Rojo. And there was a person there that's a farmer. And this is how Esencia might affect you, right? And your kids and your grandchildren, if you have grandchildren, or eventually, right? This farmer has land that borders with the Esencia people, specifically the land that has an airstrip, right? They want to develop an airport. This farmer is a watermelon farmer and fruit and other horticultural products. He said he bought that for 225, right? 225,000. I don't know how many acres, several acres. The Esencia people visited him 3 times. First offer, he said it was 1.25. Then he went up to 1.27, 1.2 something. And eventually the guy told them that he would only sell if they would pay the amount of money that he was going to make in 10 years. And then he said the number. And the Esencia people said, well, we're going to think about it. And they came back with an offer of $2.8 million for his land next to the airport. And this is how this affects you. If you want to return to Puerto Rico, and that person had sold that land for $2.8 million, the resale value of that land is $3 million. Now, think about who has $3 million in this group to buy a piece of land in Cabo Rojo so that they could come from the diaspora and enjoy their retirement, or if they just want to move back to the island. These people are pricing us out of our own island. And this is the speculative effects of Esencia that affects you, affects every Puerto Rican and Puerto Rican in the diaspora. This is the problem, one of them, right? And if there's one Esencia, if there's one Cabo Rojo land acquisition, why couldn't there be Mayagüez land acquisition, Naranjito land acquisition, Ponce land acquisition, Morovis, Vega Baja land acquisition? What limits them? Our
That's the
island is for
precedente,
sale.
yes.
Yeah, so that I think very perfectly segues into my next question. So when you're in the diaspora, it's very easy to feel that many issues regarding Puerto Rico, including this one, are very far away, or that you don't have a stake in the outcome, or especially that you don't have many options to work, especially for those diasporicans who may have been born and raised outside of the island. Why, I think, Braulio has already enunciated some of this. Why should the diaspora care about the struggle unfolding on Puerto Rico's beaches, and how can they help, even if they can't physically go protest at a beach? And similarly, what courses of action can people here on the island right now take to help stop similar projects, including any that might happen in their own communities?
Well, Beatriz has been diligently sharing links in the chat, and we invite you all to please stay tuned to all of the social media where our diverse organizations are constantly posting information, and please share forward convocatorias, call to actions Prior to the formal beginning of the talk here, we were talking to Luis Ponce about reaching out to the government up in the States, and we really haven't had too much time and success with that particular chore. The reality is that up until last year, or up until this last election, the environmental laws in Puerto Rico were often much more rigorous than they were their counterparts in the federal government. And obviously there are new threats that we won't mention, but are wildly and known. So, but it doesn't mean that that chore or that gesture shouldn't be made. I think that the voice of the diaspora is extremely important and is a super powerful tool for the federal government, but also for the Puerto Rican government. We give a lot of value and listen strongly to the opinion of the diaspora. So please do not self-censor. No, I also wanted to mention that, and Beatriz hopefully will talk about that. One of the most beautiful things about this coalition, Braulio mentioned it in the beginning, is the diversity that each organization brings to the front. And Editora Emergente Educativa, Educación Emergente, edited and created a book that is really beautiful, and it's called Cartas de Amor a los Pozos. And you might think, like I so ignorantly did in one moment in the beginning of the struggle, like who has a time to be writing a book about this when we're, in the midst of investigating and reading, a 1,000-page declaration, environmental impact declaration. But the beauty of requesting all of our personal testimonies really gave me space to think about what was my own particular take in this struggle. And it made me reflect about how growing up in the diaspora, the formation of one's identity is such a strong and powerful thing when you're going into adolescence in the diaspora. And I had been born in Puerto Rico and had a very strong sense of where I was from, but it was a strong sense that I knew I wasn't from the place where I had been uprooted to. And so how do I walk in that pride, in this new space, in this new language? And reflecting upon that, I realized that Boquerón was a super special place in a very critical time in my own personal development as a child and as a teenager outside of Puerto Rico. It was I won't share the story, but it was a space that I in which I hold my grandmother's memory and my family's development and strengthening of those roots and ties to the island. So thank you, Beatriz, for sharing the link.
Thanks to you, Damary. And I just want to add in answering this question from Javier, we need media coverage in the United States. We've been really trying, but as you know, it's an extremely intense and difficult political moment, and the attention is divided in so many fronts. So it's really difficult to get coverage for this, and it's very difficult also to get people in the media, be it, I mean, I'm talking about independent media, but also, of course, we would really like to have coverage in mainstream media, because we need the word to get out as much as possible. But it's really difficult for the media to understand that this is not some extremely localized issue. This is actually, you know, a paradigmatic example again, and a catastrophic precedente that must be stopped. And it really reaches every single aspect of life: economy, society, demographic, ecology, archaeology, every aspect of life. So we need to get the word out, as Braulio said. If this continues, there's no stopping this. There's no stopping the total sell-off of Puerto Rico. So why should the diaspora care for this issue, which was part of your question? I would really say, because if we do not stop this, there will be no point in talking about the diaspora or Puerto Ricans at all, because the point of these people is un Puerto Rico sin puertorriqueños. They've said it clearly, openly. So this is the plan. This is not some kind of like fantasy that we're working against. We know what they are after. The Junta de Control Fiscal was imposed, and they explicitly said their plan was basically to destroy all the public services in Puerto Rico, to privatize and slash the budget from all public institutions. That's why we have a University of Puerto Rico that has been greatly dismantled. That's why they're after the Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueña. That's why they're after the Departamento de Recursos Naturales right now, because the project is basically to make Puerto Rico the bunker for billionaires when they end up destroying the world, which is basically what they're doing. And it's clear. I mean, I don't think that we have to debate on this, because it's clearly, we're clearly facing a catastrophic ecological moment. And I want to say something else, and I hope I can just be very quick, but I think it's very important. We're also here facing the Punta Melones area that is under threat here, has not only all the extraordinary ecological characteristics we've summarized, and Braulio so deftly summarized a while ago, but that is combined with the huge importance of hundreds of archaeological sites that are in that area. So this is a very an extremely valuable area in the context of the archipelago of Puerto Rico, because of those two factors that are intertwined in this specific ecosystem. Now, that means that this is also a struggle for our memory. This is also a struggle for the memory of Borican. This is the struggle for our history, quite literally. Not only in symbolic terms, that, you know, if you're taking out of your land, they also erase your memory and your sense of identity, but also quite literally, materially, the rastros, the objects that point to our ancestral memory are here. I mean, they're of course everywhere, but they're especially concentrated in Punta Melones, Cabo Rojo. So, and this is actually the area of the archipelago that is the oldest area of the archipelago too, in geological terms. So when I say that this is also a matter of literally erasing our memory, which would then basically mean erasing our status as a people, that's what we're talking about here. So every individual, every group, every organization who loves Puerto Rico, who calls themselves Puerto Ricans, wherever they are, must care about this and must join this struggle.
Braulio, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think Bea hits it on the nail there with a very big hammer. I also wanted to add that this this part of Puerto Rico is also our connection to other islands of the Caribbean, right? This is in the southwest of Puerto Rico, Dominica, the Hispaniola, right? Or Haiti, ¿verdad? The island that holds both countries, it's 80 miles away. So this is not just our memory. This is the memory of people that came from other parts of the Caribbean and passed through there, right? So this is a part of our connection. And I wanted also to answer your question in terms of what the folks from the diaspora can do, even if they're not here. Well, you know, one thing that you could do that could be very helpful is to talk to your family members that are in Puerto Rico, right? If you have your uncle, your aunt, your brother, your sister, a nephew, and your grandma, your grandpa, talk to them about Esencia. Talk to them about this project and how is this going to affect you in the diaspora and your family members in Puerto Rico. We have to let everybody know what is happening in Cabo Rojo, en el sector Los Pozos, en el barrio de Boquerón. This is going to affect members. So talk to them.
Yeah.
And if
that
you have
was-
any specific destrezas, skills that you think that can help us in any way, please contact us. We'll make sure to canalizar these skills, and we're avid for any and all help.
Yeah, it's like going to our link tree. Anything that you could print it out, give it out to your friends, send it on WhatsApp groups, send it on Telegram, send it wherever you are, Signal, put it on Facebook, talk to your aunt, talk to your brother in Puerto Rico, and tell them what's going on here. We need that's a very, very easy thing to do, and it's something that will support us a lot.
Yeah,
So,
so we,
Javi,
oh, sorry.
I'm really sorry, Javier. We've been the worst.
No, it's been
We've
phenomenal
been
because
the
I'm like,
worst,
I
just
like,
not
it's been
allowing
great
you
because
to
it's
make
just
questions.
like they've you guys have gone over through, you guys, I keep reading like the questions I
But-
had, and I'm like, oh, they've already answered all of these in like their incredible, speaking points.
Well,
Like everything has been
I'm really
absolutely
glad.
covered.
I'm really
so
glad that we covered them, but I was ashamed that we're not letting you actually post the questions. But I
no
just
worries, no
I
worries.
just saw the clock, and I wanted to make sure that everyone here knows the immediate calendar of actions. We've been working for over a year now, but we have a very immediate calendar of actions, and some of these are over there in the States. So if you're gonna join the desfile puertorriqueño in New York, we're gonna be represented there. Our great friend and colleague Javier, Jeremia Cedeño, also is selling t-shirts for us, because we also need to be doing fundraising. So forms of fundraising are also ways that you can help. So if you're in New York for the desfile, please join the folks that will have representation of our Defiende a Cabo Rojo coalition. If you are in the archipelago the next few days, we've also been visiting the Cabo Rojo communities and neighborhoods for months now, but we continue to do that work. If you want to join us just to talk with people in the community, explain what Esencia is about, what the threat is about, what the effects would be for just folks who live in Cabo Rojo, longtime residents, people who own the chinchorros and restaurants, etc., that we want to protect and that this would definitely destroy. Also, we're going to be participating in the Parada de Orgullo here in Boquerón this Sunday, the 8th. And most importantly, just today, we sent out, publicized a convocatoria for manifestación. I can't even remember the words in English. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
On June 14th. So if you're in the archipelago, come to Cabo Rojo on June 14th. We're going to have people marching on land, and we're going to have a huge contingent of kayaks in La Bahía de Boquerón. And if you're not in the archipelago on that date, please, please, please help spread the word. We need all the spreading of the word that is possible. I don't know if se me quedó algo de los próximos días, but I hope
Yeah,
I
what-
covered most
Pride,
of it.
pride,
Pride, yeah,
Coming up-
Pride on Sunday, Pride on
We're coming up right on the hour, but I'd still like to give our wonderful viewers a chance to ask some questions. So feel free to pop them in the chat. And one more time, I will share our wonderful panelists' various information for you to please check out, follow on Instagram, and give further, give some more visibility to that. So I think I'll start with Eric's question. It says, is the local community actively involved against Esencia?
Ooh, I can talk about that a little bit. We, like Beatriz says, we have been visiting different communities, but also in March, when we were getting ready for the public hearings, the Office of Permits came to do public hearings for 2 days in March, the 6th and 7th of March, if my memory serves me, and they had to add an additional 2 days because there were so many people pronouncing and giving testifying against the project. This morning we were distributing updates about post hearings. And I was just reading before we came into the talk, the memorandum that Esencia wrote is a little over 100 pages, responding to all the testimonies that we managed to take to the public hearings. And within their post memorandum, they cite 8 that the OJP, the Office of Permits, received 18 testimonies in favor of Esencia, written, and only 3 of them were there to pronounce them. 2 mayors, regional mayors, and 1 interested party who sold or sold a lot of land in the transaction. And they received 168 testimonies, written testimonies, and over 59 presented. Obviously, the process was extremely, ¿cómo se dice? Entorpecido. It was very biased. It was extremely irregular. They chose a really small place to have a huge audience, and there were so many people that came to the public hearings all 4 days that we had to set up basically oasis outside, and they had to wheel out a television to transmit. We have received, like Beatriz says, over 35,000 signatures in the change.org petition that has been circulating. We put it in the chat. The reality is that it's been an overwhelming reaction in terms of multi-political parties and extremely diverse groups, including churches, church groups, and community organizations. There are very few people that are in favor of the project, and most of them, I dare say, have invested interest in.
Okay, so here's our last question for the night from Mary. First, I would like to thank Eric Santiago for his wonderful question. Mary Torres asks, I have trouble with talking points around people from the island selling properties to developers. Is there any way to inoculate against this? I understand realtors need to make a living here, but there seems to be no hesitation or second thought sometimes.
You know,
Dale,
sorry.
Braulio, dale.
No, I was just going to say something really fast to answer that question. when they're offering you big amounts of money that are 10 times, 15 times the worth of your land. You know, in the case of the farmer, he was putting his farm into production, so he was making money out of his land. But if you have a piece of land that's sitting there, that then they offer 10, 15 times the worth of it, and you are a retired person with a social security check that's $1,500 a month, you know, I don't think sometimes people don't think of it twice, right? We live in a poor island, you know, more than half of our folks live under the level of poverty. So when they show you money, you know, sometimes people don't resist. So that's really what's happening. It's kind of simple in that case. So I also wanted just to say I put out a message there on the chat that we need help for our legal defense. If you folks in the diaspora know of lawyers and have family members that are lawyers, they can help us out in our legal defense, and they want to reach out and support us. Just let them know our info, our contact info, and we more than gladly will receive their help.
I also just wanted to note really, really quickly, just to contextualize historically, every colony in history has had a class of people who support the colonizers. This is a basic common feature of this phenomenon historically, and there are multiple reasons for that we can't get into here, but of course the first person we need to read in the Caribbean region on this is Frantz Fanon. I mean, it's the obvious reference. So we're of course not romanticizing the support. We don't have 100 support from Puerto Ricans who live in Puerto Rico. Of course we don't. We actually have a government that is completely complicit and that supports and has given almost $500 million in tax incentives and breaks, as Braulio said, to the developers, and a government that is actively working for the disposition of Puerto Ricans living here, and making it impossible for Puerto Ricans who live elsewhere to return if they want to. So of course we are facing enemies here too. You know, it's not only, and the local government is a pro-Trump government. So that's the reality we're facing. That is precisely why we're calling for the most massive opposition to this. We need as massive an opposition to this as massive the enemy is, because they also have billions of dollars on their side. So of course we're not, you know, we're not, no se trata, o sea, sí, this is, there's a, you know, there are real estate developers who are, or real estate people who sell houses and stuff, who are Puerto Rican, who live in the archipelago, and are also facilitating things like this, not only Esencia, but other things like this. I mean, we've been being taken over by short-term rentals, for instance, and that has had a huge impact in displacing communities and fragmenting neighborhoods. So, and they're making their bucks like that. So sometimes it's like Braulio says, and sometimes it's actually just people who are not necessarily in that dire economic need, but who ideologically are for this mode of society, if it even survives. So I mean, they're complicit with colonial exploitation. This has happened everywhere throughout history. So it's part of the struggle. This is also an ideological struggle. What Puerto Rico do we want? What Puerto Rico, if for whom is the Puerto Rico we want? What kind of archipelago we're fighting for, and we're building as we fight for it. So this is at the same time a very material struggle, a very ideological struggle, and also a struggle for our memory, our identity, our sense of collective self and collective personhood. So, and it's also, of course, a huge struggle for life itself, for the possibility of life in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean in general. So that's what I would say. I think this is a regular feature, a usual feature in colonies.
Yeah, thank you all again for taking these audience questions. I'd just like to close briefly reminding everybody in the year 2000, it looked impossible that you could kick the Navy out of Vieques. In 2003, they kicked them out. In January 2019, everybody thought it would be impossible to get Governor Ricky Rosselló out of La Fortaleza. By July 2019, he was out. So it's just so important to emphasize both the need and the result of struggle, even if in the moment it doesn't look like it'll happen. But yeah, I just want to remind everybody that, united we're stronger. And, as the song says, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido. So again, I'd like to thank all of our wonderful, wonderful panelists. Please, please, please follow them on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, Blue Sky, everywhere you can. This is such an important work that they're doing. We all should be doing to make sure that Puerto Rico still has space for Puerto Ricans, that they're not all pushed out. And again, thank you to our viewers. Thank you again to our panelists for their incredible contributions today.
Gracias, gracias.
Gracias a ustedes.